In today's episode, we talk with Brenda Hernandez. She's an entrepreneur, a mom, and an all around powerful woman. She's also created designs by her. Listen to our conversation to hear about her powerful, challenging, amazing story. Welcome to another episode of Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts, Jennifer Hobson and Christy Palermo, and we are very excited to have another guest with us. And before I even introduce her, I have to share a kind of side story of how we met. If you believe in, kind of higher power or manifesting or positive energy, anything like that, then this will resonate with you. So recently, my husband and I attended a kind of a charity event for the Taunton Diversity Network. It was called a Sneaker Ball, which if you ever get a chance to go to any sneaker ball, do it because you can get dressed to the nines and not have to wear heels. It's a good time. And so there was predetermined seating, right? Assigned seating. So we were assigned to a table, and my husband and I sat down, and you just start to get to know the people at your table, right? They're sitting there with you for 3 hours. You should probably get to know them. And this beautiful woman to my left, she was so gorgeous, and she was there with her family. Who they're all gorgeous, right? You get the pictures in the frames. That's Brenda and her family. Okay. And so I introduced myself, and she, of course, asked what I did. And I said, well, I'm a wellness and empowerment coach, and I'm also a speaker. And she said, oh, so am I. And I said, that's amazing. And I said, oh, my next event, I'll be speaking in March. She said, so will I. And I have to remind you guys, this event has over 300 people in this room. And we figured out that we would both be speaking at the same event within 4 weeks. And we had never met each other before. And so I include that story to say, if you're putting a certain kind of energy out into the universe is going to put opportunities and people in your life to match your energy. And I will say, since then, I have spoken at that event, and I have heard Brenda's story, well, part of her story, right? And she's even more powerful than when I first met her and got to see just a glimpse into her life, her partner Roger, and her beautiful children. So I want to introduce to you guys Brenda Hernandez, and I want her to kind of tell you guys a little bit about herself before we even get started.
Well, first, thank you for that beautiful introduction. I literally have goosebumps all over. I'm such a believer that when you put something into the universe will feed you exactly what you need. And so thank you for the opportunity, Jen, to be on your podcast. I think that what you're
Absolutely.
doing is beautiful. Absolutely love the name of your show. It's Yeah, it's perfect for the world that, we women, mom entrepreneurs are living in right now. Before I even start talking about myself, I want to shout out TDN for putting on a great event. They are turning that into a yearly fundraiser. So if you're in the area, absolutely you must go. It's so much fun. It's for a great cause. And to your point, Jen, like what a fun way to have a blast, dress up, and we women can dance all night and not worry about our feet hurting. Like perfect. Yeah, so I'm not really good about like telling people like who I am. It's a little nerve-wracking. But in a nutshell, I am an entrepreneur. I am a woman. I am a mom, and I am figuring out life. I left my corporate position of 23 years just about shy of 2 years ago. Um, just, after COVID, I think everyone kind of took a step back and started assessing like, where am I in life? I felt a little choked in the position that I was in. I felt unhappy. And sadly, I was taking a lot of that frustration out on my family. My partner, who is just such a champion of mine, suggested we invest in real estate. And so he said, leave your job, let's grow our business. Let's grow our portfolio. And so after some thinking and sitting with it, I was moved to do exactly that. So I resigned from my position and we went full-fledged into growing our real estate portfolio. And then we just kind of sat down and decided, like, okay, what makes sense in this very moment for us? And at that time, I was really starting to enjoy the Airbnb short-term rental platform. And so we decided he was going to buy me out of my share of the business that we owned. And with that money, I actually started investing in short-term rentals. And so through that space, I was able to attain 7 short-term rental properties. But more than that, I actually discovered a love for interior design. And so I actually started a home staging slash Airbnb consulting business. And so now I own Designs by Her. And I'm just enjoying life and figuring things out as I go, because none of us have all the answers.
Yeah. And I love the play on your last name, Designs by Her, right? With
Yeah.
Hernandez. I loved that. I love that when you had shared that. And what I take from that part of your story, and I think a lot of people that, first of all, if you're listening to podcasts, as long as you're not listening to crime podcasts, you're typically trying to listen to people that are doing something that you want to be doing, or are just doing something that's intriguing. And what I heard from your story when you first told me is, there are a lot of people, especially before COVID and now, that are just unhappy with what they have to do to survive, right? To create an income.
Yeah.
And they believe, because for whatever story that they have, that that's their only option, instead of going, hey, it's time to think outside the box. There are millions of other ways I can make an income. I just have to be willing to do a little extra, take a few chances, right? It was still a chance, even though you had an additional income from another source. It didn't mean that it was going to work the way you intended it to, right? It's definitely taking a leap of faith in what you're capable of. And it's interesting because we talked about this last week on our podcast of trust yourself. What you have to be able to do is say, I've proven to myself that I continue to show up. So I know I can kind of take that leap of faith and do something that's new and something that's scary. So I love all of the things that you're doing on the entrepreneur side. What I would love for you to share with our listeners, because it really resonated with me, is a little bit more, Brenda, about your personal story and where you come from, because I think that has such an impact on who you are and what you do now.
Yeah, before I jump in that, just really
Sure.
quick to talk to anyone listening who's trying to figure out their next step. When Roger suggested that I leave my corporate position, I had a million excuses as to why not. And then I sat with myself. I'm a woman of faith, and so every morning I sit in prayer and meditation, and I started putting that energy out there. So originally, before I left my position, I was like, okay, well, before I leave, everything needs to look a certain way. I need to be able to make this much during with my real estate, and I need to have this figured out. And there was like all these layers, and I was making it so complicated. Now that I'm moved on, I can earnestly tell you that that was me functioning from a place of fear.
Yep.
Fast forward to one morning, I woke up in tears, miserable, and just the idea of jumping on my computer was daunting. And I was like, I can't do this. I just cannot do this anymore. And I went to Roger and I said, this is how I'm feeling. And he said, you know where I stand. And before I could even second guess myself, I sent the letter of resignation to corporate, to HR, to let them know I was leaving. I didn't have anything figured out. I didn't have the income that I anticipated to have with the real estate. I didn't, like, there was so many things that were unsteady, but I was like, I'm taking a chance on me. And here's the thing, Jen, I figured it out. And like from just taking that leap of faith, a bunch of doors just started to open up for me. So just I really want this to hit home for your listeners. We don't have to have it all figured out. It's so scary. It feels so scary, but really it's all in our heads. Like if you take the jump, you will figure out where to go next. So I just really felt compelled to say that to the audience. What was your question again?
That's okay. No, and that's why I love these conversations, because these are the things that come up and you're like, you know what? I feel so strongly that if I don't say this, I'm going to leave this conversation, go, what the hell? I should have said that. I wanted to share that piece. And I think it's important. And what I hear from that is fear and self-doubt so many times can take you out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And back to the universe, putting the opportunities and the people in your path, it will happen. If you stay consistent and you show up for your dream, you can't show up one day and then be like, oh, I took a break for 2 weeks and then I showed up again. That's not what we're saying. Then the universe isn't going to put the things that you need in front of you. But when you
Yeah.
put the energy out there, it might not look like you said, I need exactly $5,000 from this and 250 from this. It's not going to look like that. I guarantee you there will be months where you're like, what am I doing? And then there will be months where you're like, I'm a freaking rock star. There's just different, there's
Yeah.
that ebb and flow. And I'm happy that you shared that part. Chrissy, it looked like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I was going to jump in to say the same thing, that I love stories like that where, because almost all the time when you hear stories of triumph like this or changing direction, nobody has it all figured out. The things are not lined up the way you want to. So to have another story in that way where you just went with your gut and you just did it and then the things started to align, that like I really have goosebumps right now. I have chills, because that is where the magic happens, is when you believe in yourself and you trust in your gut and you take the leap. And we all hear take the leap and then the net will appear. It is so true. And so your story is now going to resonate with people in your audience, to be like, I know her and she did this. And if she can do it, I can do it too, because that's what we all need, is that reassurance. It's never really reassurance, but it's that reminder that once you're living in your zone of genius, as we've heard called before, that's really where the magic starts to happen. And so hearing your story is just so inspiring, so refreshing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And just kind of to hit a little bit more on what Jen was saying a second ago, like when you start putting out questions to the universe is going to answer back. But at the end of the day, you have to take that leap of faith. Like you need to make that decision. And if you don't, the universe will stop talking to you. It'll move on. So it's like, sit with yourself, ask the questions, but when the universe delivers the answers, don't miss out on that opportunity. I know it's scary. Trust me, I get it. But the reward is so fulfilling. Like I am loving like honestly, I sit with friends who are still tied to a corporate job. And I don't know, just right now, I just got so sad and a little choked up because I feel so bad for they're so miserable and so unhappy because they're tied to this corporate position and the money that they're making and the story that they've made up. And I'm like, wow, like I love my life and I love everything that's happening right now. And so it's just the reward can be so much bigger than the fear.
Yeah, and I think where we're going with that part of the conversation and what I'm hearing, and because I've heard a little bit of your story, and I don't want to give your personal story away, but one of the things that you had shared is when you came back to Massachusetts. I think you said you were 18, you had $100 in your pocket, right? You didn't have a lot of excuses then because you were 18, you didn't give a fuck. Right? Where now, as you're aging, you were like thinking of all the things that needed to be put into place and hesitating and fearful and doubtful. And I think for many people, and those people that you are having that emotional feeling for, we hesitate as we
Yeah.
age. Partially it's because of our experiences, right? We have failed and it really sucked, and we might not want to be back in that place, even though it would take a lot of detrimental things to be as far back as we used to be. And we do have emotional feelings for how those people are, and we know, because we know that feeling and we know that feeling of stuck.
Mhm.
However, we just have to be encouraging, because we know those people have the same opportunities as us, and we can't do it for them. We can want it for them and we can encourage them, but at the end of the day, they have to own what they have chosen.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah.
Awesome. So what I was asking earlier, and I think still plays really well into it, is for you to share with our listeners a little bit about you personally and where you come from, because I really do believe where we come from and how we develop into the adults that we are play a big part in what we do. And I think your story was extra, and so many people haven't had the challenge you have, but they still make the excuses, and you haven't done that.
Yeah. So, when I was 4 years old, my parents, who did not speak English at all, moved us from Puerto Rico to here, Massachusetts. And as you can only imagine, that showed, a lot of difficulty. And so I'm trying to think about how to put this. So basically my parents moved here. I was 4 years old. They were non-English speaking, and they were just trying to figure it all out. At the age of 15, they actually decided that they were going to move us back to Puerto Rico, and that was a culture shock for us. At this point, we were speaking more English than we were speaking Spanish, and so there was that hurdle to cross over. But then on top of that, like, we had made friends here that we'd gone to school with. We had this whole life here. To add more, they literally moved us from like what was a city to the middle of nowhere. Like, we literally look out the window and there was like cows and chickens.
Most people think of Puerto Rico and they think of San Juan, and that's about it. And then you're like, no, there's so many parts of the island.
Not at all. Like, literally, like in the mornings you'd hear the roosters, and like the closest movie theater was like a 45-minute hour drive from us. So it was like a culture shock. And so immediately I was like, oh, this is not going to be my forever. I am not staying here. Which just leads me to applaud that 15-year-old for being like, I'm just gonna figure it out. But it also just leads me to like realize, wow, like, ever since I was young, I had an intuition that thankfully I was always able to willingly follow. And so I just knew like I wasn't going to stay there. My mom used to give us an allowance. And so I actually opened up a savings account, and I would put all of my weekly allowance into the savings account. When I was a senior and the school formally informed that we were graduating, I actually pulled out all my money. And back then there was travel agencies, and I walked over to the travel agency and booked a one-way flight back to Massachusetts. I had a best friend, and so we told her parents that I was coming to visit. And I stayed with them, and I just never left. And so, yeah, my mom was like, I don't support this, but here's $100 for you to kind of get started. And I think she was kind of hoping that I'd fall on my ass and come back, but it's just not who I am. I'm like, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna fight so much harder to get it done. Yeah, so I moved here. And I just figured it out. At the age of probably 20 years old, I met, at the time, this handsome gentleman. And at the age of 22, we got pregnant, and life just completely changed at that point. The relationship got super toxic. It got violent. It was verbally abusive, physically abusive. And when my little girl was about 2.5, 3 years old, my partner at the time, her dad, called my best friend and had told her that he had had a dream that he had murdered both Michaela and I. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't do this. Like, A, I'm not going to raise my daughter in this environment. And B, like, I don't know if he would be capable of like actually killing us. And so, yeah, I picked up my daughter and we moved. Actually, no, I got a restraining order against him and had him moved out of the home. And so then again, like at that point, I was like, oh my God, I need to take care of my daughter. I need to provide for my daughter. Like, how am I going to do this? And Jen, I sat with myself. And I sat in my faith, and I sat in prayer, and I was like, you know what? Like, God, just give me strength to figure this out. Give me strength to be an amazing role model for my daughter, but also help me to heal and unpack everything that I've been through. And so I literally, Jen, sat with myself for 7 years, single, trying to figure out me, trying to unpack all of the unhealthy things that I had learned for so many years. And so I did a lot of meditation, I did a lot of praying, I went to women's groups, I went to speaker events, like I was doing tons of reading, just trying to really create a healthy version of me. And so by the 7 year mark, I was like, okay, like I think I'm ready to move on.
I
But I
have
was
to
like,
pause you there because I almost want to be like, yes, you did it, Brenda. You took care of yourself. Like, I
yeah,
really want to be
yeah,
like, yes, because so many people that
yeah,
may have experienced something similar to you would have maybe gotten to a quick relationship that
yeah,
repeating patterns, they wouldn't have shown up for themselves. And you were young, right?
yeah,
That is
yeah.
young to then go, I need to put myself first, because putting myself first also puts my daughter first.
Yeah, Jen, the thing that I did share with the audience is that my mom and dad had a very toxic relationship. And so I mirrored their relationship. And so when I left that relationship, I don't want to judge anybody for how they move in life.
Mhm,
I'm just expressing what worked for me.
for
And
sure.
I knew that I did not want to fall into those same patterns.
Mhm,
I had literally fallen in love with the version of my dad. And I was like, I am not doing this ever again. And it's not who I'm bringing into my household to raise my daughter. And so, yeah, for me, it was really important to take that time to break those unhealthy patterns and also to ensure that my daughter had a good example. And so, like I've always said, if my daughter chose to be in a toxic relationship, it wasn't something that she was going to learn from me. And so it really served me to take that time. After the 7 years, I knew I was ready to like move into a healthy relationship. And so I literally would sit in prayer and be like, God, please send me a man that is going to be a great example for my daughter, that's going to have a ton of patience with me because I am not easy. That's going to be supportive. Like I literally manifested everything that I wanted in this person. And sure enough, Jen, like I joined an online dating forum, and within like 2 months, my prayers literally were answered. I met this amazing person who we've been together now 13 years, has been nothing but supportive, uplifting. He was a role model. He was a father figure. Like, so I guess I share all that not to boast about how great my life is.
I mean,
I
but for a
share
second,
it,
yes.
right? So that everyone listening to us knows that they can create that same life. Like I'm no better or more special than anyone else. I just took the time to heal, create a healthy environment, and manifest. And anyone can do that.
Yeah, it's available to all of us. It's not easy, but it is available. And if you don't know where to go, listening to things like this, reaching out and going, well, how did you do that? How did you approach that? Who can I talk to? There's a lot of resources out there, because part of people's journey and really the paper walls in front of them is healing, whether it's toxic, romantic relationships or parent, whatever kind of relationship it is. There's so much trauma that people haven't unpacked, that once they get into a new relationship, then all of a sudden, these triggers are coming out, and you're like, well, why do I continue to have relationships that aren't serving me? Well, because you haven't done the work on you. So you're not in a position to be giving to someone else yet. And I think that's hard. And I have to just give a side note. Well, he was a wonderful person to talk to. And I wasn't there long, but I can see, when you can see someone's relationship and nothing's ever perfect. We get that. But there is mutual respect, there's love for each other. And your daughter, gorgeous on the outside, first of all. You
Thank
are
you.
both beautiful, but she also has a very gentle, kind demeanor around her. And you have definitely shown her, right? She's already doing her own coaching on what she wants to be doing, and she's so young. And it's that lead by example. I love that you said if my daughter was going to end up in a toxic romantic relationship, it wasn't because of anything I modeled for her.
Yeah.
Boom. Like that is
Give me
every parent's dream to be like, if I can set this up so that if they choose to learn the hard way, yeah, they're going to go through it, but it's not because of what I showed them.
Yeah.
And you're changing generations to come with that. Like you have started the change for your family and you have taken that step forward, and now generations to come has broken that mold of what it used to be, which is so important and so uplifting for everyone.
Yeah, no, and that was so important to me. It really was. I wanted to give my daughter a true chance to start healthy.
Yeah. I think everything that you have endured and then it is overcoming, right? And doing that new path because you weren't shown that way. So you had to figure it out on your own. And we've had other conversations with guests too. And what I love to consistently hear is the people that are not choosing to be victim of their circumstances, but choosing to be what they wish they had modeled for them. And like Christy said, you're not just affecting yourself, you're not just affecting your daughter, you're affecting generations to come that come from you. And I think that's amazing. And I think so much of what you do pours in to what you offer to people, right? It's this genuine connection. Yes, it could just be, oh, she just does interior design. But I've seen just some of the things, and and stalking you. I love stalking my guests on social media.
Please go ahead.
Right? Stalk away. And it's this, you can always see when someone is pouring a piece of themselves into everything that they do. And I would love for you to share what is Designs by Her currently doing, and what does the future look like for that?
Yeah, so it's so funny you say that, right? Because I literally started this business out of intuition. I was working on my Airbnbs, and Roger, my partner, was like, "You have a gift for this." He's like, "You're super creative." And Roger's an artist. So when he said that, I was like, "Oh,
I didn't
okay."
even know this.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
like an aha moment. And he was like, "You have like such good because not only do you create beautiful spaces, but they're warm and comfortable too." And so from that conversation, it just led from one thing to the other. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm going to start a home staging business. And so currently right now I'm staging homes in the South Coast area, but I am willing to go out about 45 minutes outside of my residence. And then I'm also doing Airbnb styling and consulting because, as I mentioned, I own several, so I know what it takes to actually, run a successful Airbnb. What the future holds, I think I'm going to continue to share my story with the public. I am looking to continue my public speaking platform. And then also, I think we're looking to, at some point, expand so that we actually are either selling furniture or creating a sort of space where we can set up some of our stuff and then hold like women events in our space. And I'm also doing a ton of networking right now and collaborating with other strong forces and figuring out like how can we partner and encourage one another and feed off of each other. And so I'm doing a lot of that, just connecting with beautiful souls who are doing amazing, beautiful things, learning from them, and then also offering my services. Like, how can I help you, and how can we partner and support one another? So that's kind of where I am right now, and that's sort of what the future is holding. But as we all know, like, we make plans and God laughs. So we'll see what really happens.
Yeah, I think that's definitely so. Let me ask you then, as you're in, I kind of feel like it's almost like a transition period. You know what you're really good at, you're offering that really well. You want to see where you're growing into and what it could be, what you want it to be. Let me ask you, because we all know we fall a few times before we get all the way up. At this point, as an entrepreneur, what has been your biggest lesson so far that you could share?
Um, I don't know. Oh.
Yeah, it came to you. You saw it.
So two things. Like again, people think that they have to have it all figured out, and you really don't. I launched a business out of a passion. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I should start like actually putting some meat and potatoes into this. And so there's a ton of resources out there. Currently, I'm working with score.org and their mentorships on getting like my marketing strategy together, getting my sales strategies together. I just hired a business coach, so I have somebody coaching me on like how to build certain platforms and really perfect like what my business is and who I am and the client that I actually want to attract, because I don't want to partner up with everyone. I want to partner up with the right person for me. And so I just want to make sure that like if there's anybody on the fence about starting a new business, if they're feeling like, oh my God, I just don't have it figured out, listen, you don't have to have it figured out. Just jump in and then find the resources that you need to get you to where you need to be.
Yeah.
I forgot your question,
You're
but
good. That was it. I mean, that was
the
basically,
audience.
yeah, that was basically the answer. And I think it sums it up perfectly. It's this idea of don't wait. I mean, it's like having kids. Your business
Yeah,
becomes your baby, right? We all think, oh, I'm not going to have a baby till it's the perfect time. And I'm like,
yeah,
there ain't no perfect time to have these tiny humans.
yeah.
It's the same thing. Your business, it's something you grow. It grows with you. It changes. It becomes adolescence, all of these different things. And waiting for the perfect time is literally like waiting for the perfect time to have kids. And you're not going to be prepared. And what you think it's going to be like ain't going to be nothing like
I was just gonna say that. You know, like that mom who reads 1,000 books before she hits 8 months, and
that.
then the baby comes along and she doesn't remember a word that she read. Like
Exactly.
you think you could be prepared, but you're really not. And I just had lunch recently with someone who said to me, don't spend a lot of time on your business plan. Like you literally just got started. You won't know what your business plan is going to be probably for a year or two out. Like right now, you're pivoting and you're morphing and you're trying to figure out who you are. Like, don't spend a lot of time there. And like, you know what? You're absolutely right. So yeah, just don't think you have to have your business all figured out. Don't think you have to have life all figured out. Just
It's
one.
that reminder of just what's the next right step. Just look at the small term and what is the next right step. And Jen and I talk a lot about that. And
You're
so seeing
so
you living that, it's such a great reminder. And I love hearing all that you're doing. And it just, you have such a beautiful vision too for where you want to keep going and expanding, but also keeping that trueness to yourself. And I'm not for everybody. I want to work with the people that are right for me, because I think that's owning where you are too, and really standing in that power.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's
want,
another thing too, right? Like a lot of us want to like bend into pretzels, trying to like fit everybody's mold. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like I'm 44. I'm getting tired. I don't want to fit into everybody's mold. Like this is who I am. This is what I offer. If it's not for you, that's okay. Let me move on to the other client who I might fit well with.
I love all of the things that you've shared, Brenda. I think from where you've come from, without all the, the true gory details of having to overcome toxic relationships, healing trauma, teaching our daughters, right? I mean, I have boys and I'm teaching them how to be the other side of that, and realizing this business and going, you know what? I'm gonna go for it regardless of the outcome, and I'm gonna grow it to something where I want to show up in my true authentic self. What I was thinking of when you said that was like these cookie cutters, right? I don't know why I had this vision, and we all start out the same cookie cutter shape, and by the time we're in our 40s, our cookie has morphed until all of these, different shapes, and there's gonna be some that they fit right into the nooks and crannies, and those are our people, and it's okay if they don't fit because they're not meant for us. Like you said, first of all, and the only other part that I wanted to hear from you and I want to add to yours is you said when the universe puts those things in front of you, that's for a reason. And I have to say, take the things that the universe puts in front of you, and it
Yeah.
might not be, oh, I hoped for a tall, dark, handsome man. Well, maybe he's not that tall, but he's dark and handsome and he's kind. Like, stop turning away the things that were meant for you because they're not perfect. And I think that's really important. And what I would love for you to share with our
I
listeners.
have to say something really quick.
Yeah, go.
So when I was manifesting my perfect partner, I met Roger. It was a blind date, pretty much.
Yeah.
And when we met at the restaurant, he was literally like my height, and I was like, oh, okay.
I love that I just gave that analogy.
Yes. But let me tell you, he is more of a man than any 6-foot guy that I've ever met.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
He didn't need to fit into the 7-foot structure because he had everything he had to offer you already.
100%.
Right? That's so fun. I love that I gave that analogy then. And for our listeners, because again, we are putting out into the universe. I know there are people listening that will want to connect with you or just watch what you're doing sometimes. How can people connect with you right now, Brenda?
So they can definitely follow me on social media. It's Brenda Hernandez on Facebook, Designs by Her. It's D_signs by her on Instagram, and they can always email me. It's BL Hernandez, HERNANDEZ 04@gmail.com.
Amazing. So I'm going to be putting all of your information in the show notes.
Awesome.
That way people can find you. Do you have any speaking engagements coming up?
So I am going to be interviewed on another podcast, and I will be on Jen Potter's TV show in a couple of weeks as well.
Amazing. So for those of you listening, Jen Potter will be one of our future guests. We have already decided on that. I have also been interviewed on her show. You can always go to Now Media and you can look up Networking Now. Well, apparently you'll be able to watch both Brenda and myself on Networking Now. And stay tuned. Jen will be on here. It's that wonderful universe putting us all in the same place.
100%.
I'm usually associated with more Jens, but I'm very glad to have met a Brenda. So for any of you listening, always join the conversation, and you can follow us on Instagram at Happy Healthy Skeptical.